Alright, a little bit of Vampire the Masquerade today. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm so glad to have you back here at Suave Midnight, where we're continuing talking about the world of darkness and its lore, focusing again on the vampires of this world. Today we are going to be talking about the Camarilla, which is the largest vampire faction in the world of darkness. It is a loose organization which ostensibly represents and protects all vampires by enforcing and propagating the Masquerade. It is currently composed of 6 vampire clans, formerly 7, though officially it considers all Kindred under its purview and welcomes any that obey its laws. Another interesting point about that, the Camarilla claims that every single vampire is a member of the Camarilla. They don't give anybody choice in it. Just an interesting point. You could definitely see how that would rub some people, or vampires rather, the wrong way. In addition to this, they have an interest in preventing the growing mortal masses from discovering the existence of vampires and other supernatural creatures. The Camarilla aims to maintain the status quo for vampire society, and as such, much of its structure and traditions mirror that of Cainite society in feudal Europe in the Dark Ages and the Medieval Ages, and places it at odds with the agenda of the Sabbat, the Sword of Cain, and the Anarchs, both of whom seek to overthrow the Camarilla's tight grip on vampire society. The Camarilla became an organization out of necessity, mostly due to the growing threat of the Inquisition. The Inquisition was essentially a group of humans, or not a group of humans, it was basically a period of time in the Dark Ages where a large amount of humanity was aware of the existence of vampires and other supernatural creatures and attempted to exterminate all of them. And they were almost successful. You can see why the Camarilla is worried about being discovered by humanity, considering that they were almost wiped out by humans with swords, torches, and crossbows, essentially. Imagine what mortals armed with thermonuclear weapons could accomplish. Though there had been attempts to form alliances between Kindred in the past, a meeting of elders to seriously consider the idea of forming a league of vampires, essentially, was held in 1394. Little came of it, however, until a bold attack was made on the castle of the elder Ventru, Hardestadt, led by the famous anarch Tyler. Really? His name is just Tyler? Let's check this out. Yeah, this is goofy. This sounds like... I'm looking at this guy's page right now. Sorry if you're a big fan of this character, because this is cringe. Oh, what? Okay, it's a last name, right? Okay. No, that makes sense. Alright. I'll go with that. Interesting. I didn't realize that that was such an old name. Alright, back to the Camarilla. Yeah, there was an attack made on the castle of the elder Ventru Hardestadt, led by the famous anarch Tyler. The founders to be recognized the need for a unified front against the Inquisition and the Anarchs, and so they banded together several of their most trusted childer and servants into essentially a joint task force to use against the Anarchs. Though meant to illustrate what could be accomplished if elders pooled their resources together, as usual with vampires, politics and rivalries would continue to divide them and weaken them, even as the founders slowly made preparations for their new alliance. The formation of the Camarilla, a word that denoted both that it was a convocation of peers or comrades, and that it met in session secret from mortal knowledge, was announced in 1435 as the founders began openly rallying support for a coalition that would protect vampires from the dangers of roving anarchs, the invading Assamite clan, and the increasingly dangerous mortal mobs of the Inquisition. After all, the very Spanish word Camarilla also means to mutually scratch one another's back, a meaning that would be given expression in the convoluted workings of priestation throughout the sect. War continued to rage over the next several decades, and the founders, now called Justicars, fought to hold the new sect together. In 1486, the first national conclave was convened, during which the Justicars were given broader authority to punish vampires who violated the traditions. The traditions are basically the 10 Commandments of the Camarilla. Let me just touch on them really quick because it is important to the Camarilla as a whole. There's the Masquerade, which means that you must do everything you can to hide the existence of vampires. 2. The Domain. A kindred's hunting ground is his own territory, and he rules it absolutely. Progeny. You can only sire new vampires with the permission of your elders. Accounting. Until children are released, their actions are totally the responsibility of their sire. Hospitality. You must honor the domains of others and present oneself to the ruler of any domain you visit. And destruction. The right to kill kindred is reserved for the elder of a community. Only an elder may call for a blood hunt. Here's the interesting thing about a blood hunt, by the way. There's something called diablerie in Vampire the Masquerade, which is when one vampire drinks the blood of another vampire. See, if a weaker vampire manages to drink the blood of a more powerful vampire, they gain that vampire's power. Interesting thing about this is that it's basically the vampire version of cannibalism. It's polite society looks down on it, essentially. It's a major crime. Except when there's a blood hunt called. When a blood hunt is called, it means that the person that has the blood hunt on their head has committed such a grave crime that it's open season on them if you want to diablerize them, which is very interesting. Anyways, back to the history of the Camarilla. Where was I? Yes. In 1493, the Convention of Thorns marked the end of the first Anarch Revolt and the birth of the Camarilla as it is known today. The traditions were accepted as absolute law, and representatives for the Bruja, Gangrel, Malkavian, Nosferatu, Toreador, Tremere, and Ventrue clans officially joined the sect, while those speaking for the La Sombra and Zamici were majority anarchs. And they rebelled against what they considered an offensive ultimatum and went on to form the Sabbat, in opposition to everything the founders intended. While the Convention of Thorns was a significant victory for the Camarilla, it set the stage for the next 5 centuries of conflict between the Sabbat and the Camarilla.